the next time they go down the list, fired, fired, fired. No, Christian was good today. We'll fire the next time. That's how I think. Now go to the next grade, which really acting has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Yeah, right. The streets are strewn with talented actors who are bad businessmen or some kind of permutation of that. But they called me back, and Michael Maloney said that was the first time that had happened. And he called me once. I had to turn him down, which is always good for the soul, because I was committed to the play, and we were hopefully with Julie Harris going to Broadway, and then we didn't. And right on time, he called again, and I said yes. I jumped on that puppy. And 16 years later,
here you are.
There you go.
Well, I know that I read that you were in school for pre-med and also history. I mean, what got you excited and wanting to be in acting of all things?
It's so funny.
That's different realms.
Yeah. No, and I had actually sung in college. I was in that, that great top 40 singing group that, every college had.
Yeah.
Tulanians. And I'd done some musicals, but never thought of it as a game. I like my paycheck every week,
Mm-hmm.
And I loved medicine. I loved patient care. I'd worked in hospitals, like I said, since grammar school. Even in college, I worked at the all-night emergency radios and stuff like that. I loved it. Anything I know about drama, actually, I learned in the emergency room and in hospitals, in rehab. The rest is cake. But I needed a way to pay for it. And a friend of mine who is a doctor now, Joey Gallinghouse, Dr. Gallinghouse now, was a handsome man, and was making all this money doing GQ spreads back in the day. And I was a swimmer. I would still swim, even though all my friends had made it into medical school and I was waitlisted. So I was working at the hospital trying to prove that I could do chemistry. So I was in the laboratories all the time. And I would go back and still swim with my mates at Tulane. And one guy, their photographer, so two things happened the same. The photographer showed up, and he sent me to this little agency. And I got my first commercial. It was for a root beer. But nobody told me that you're supposed to spit. You're not supposed to sit there and drink all the takes.
Oh, my gosh,
because you get sick.
Oh, gosh.
And there's a bucket sitting next to you. And I'm going, what's that nasty bucket? Will someone get this bucket away from me? You're supposed to be spitting the beer in that bucket. Because if you drink for 20,000 takes, you're just going to get sick. So I'm drinking the Barks root beer and drinking, just having smiling. This is delicious, and I'm slowly becoming ill. So I get home and I pass out of my little garret apartment in New Orleans, down in the uptown area. So old that when it's at the very top in the attic. The woman showed me the apartment, my landlady, and when I got it, she gave me a big, thick coil of rope and said, "This in case of a fire." That is New Orleans in a nutshell. Everything's so old. It's like, you throw that cord out the window and shimmy down.
Yeah.
Get out of that fire. There you go. I remember to this day a huge coil of rope. But they called, and when I hit the bed thinking I'll never be sicker than this, they called me up and said I got this PBS series in Jackson, Mississippi. I'd never lived away from home. Did that, and a friend, just ignorant. Some of it's like, well, I'm going to go up to New York. I lived there. And he had done commercials in Atlanta, so he was a real actor. Wow. I knew that.
Yeah.
Yep. And I moved. Yeah, Atlanta. Everything's around Atlanta, And then I moved up to New York on a whim. But I remember my brother was getting married, and he asked me to be in the wedding. And it was a sudden thing. I said, I can't miss for some reason, I knew I couldn't miss the flight. If I didn't go, I wasn't going to. I don't know why, because I wasn't planning anything, but to explore it. I was on leave from the hospital, that's all. And so I went up there, and I got to tell you, it was a year in the middle of As the World Turns, and that was my first big gig. I realized I liked it. And I went around, this is such a nerd school guy. I went around the studio asking people why they were actors. I just remember this, like that book, Are You My Mother?
Did they look at you cross-eyed?
Oh, no, you know what? Honestly, I didn't get made fun of. That's what's interesting. Other actors might have understood the point. I didn't go into any explanation. I was just, why are you an actor? Just out of conversation. And the best answer I got, and remember, in that day, my girlfriends were Marissa Tomei and Julianne Moore, and Meg Ryan was on the show, and Margaret Collin and Justin D. And these amazing actors.
Wow, yeah, good names.
And Roy is on our Kate McNeil was her name and is her name. Wonderful actress. She was just on Mad Men. And then I went up to her, and she said, I will just want one place where I can be 100% honest. And I was like, that's good enough. That's a good, because, you're raised in school. I was Catholic, but all of us, to be of service somewhere. That's what your mom and father want you to be. They would be of service somehow. And doctor right away you understand what that is. But acting, you really have to find why you're doing it. If you want to. People do it just they fall into it and they stay. But if you stay in it, and I realized I was loving it. It wasn't just, that I couldn't go back to the hospital, but I needed a reason. Mm-hmm. And you discover that. And your reasons will change, just like relationships. You have to fall in love with your profession, I think, over and over again in a different way as you grow older and you learn more and you change as a person. But at that time, and it still sticks in my mind, to be true, because that's the heart of the profession, if you're going to be a good one, is to be honest. And it was really a fascinating end. I still know Kate, and her husband works on our show as a stage manager, which is so funny, years in.
Yeah.
So, and then I
keep that
stayed.
connection.
Yeah. Well, it's such a small tribe of people, honestly, at the end of the day. And you'll see each other either in New York or L.A. And also sometimes it's the person who white-knuckles it the longest. My plan is to age out everybody. Yeah. And I will be the most successful elderly man ever.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to outlive Eric Braeden, right?
What's that?
So you're going to have to live out Eric Braeden.
And it'll be me, him, and the Roaches. That's it.
Yeah.
That'll be it.
That'll be a heck of a show by then,
Yeah, right? But, well, hell, don't put anything past us. The show must go on.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Now, in all the years that you have been on Y&R, do you have a particular storyline that just stands out for you that's your favorite?
I got just out of synchronicity of I just found it interesting. The storyline when Kevin comes on was so interesting because it happened so abruptly and was it was just an inspiration to Jack Smith, who was the executive producer, and as he puts it, Kevin was online to be let go. We were all evil. Well, I had gotten over it and come back, but Kevin was also stalking Crystal on the internet. Lily. Bad guy. And the story, as Jack says it, his daughter was watching, and those two guys look so much alike. And as soon as we started working together, we would be inundated with tweets and letters about how are we really brothers, which I thought, I didn't see it at all. I think Greg is amazing, and a really, I was so lucky. But when they brought him in, and they built a backstory, which I had in my head a little, but, because Michael for years was saying, I'm alone in the world.
Right.
So all of a sudden they had to make this big change, but it worked. If you're going to be abusive to women, could it be because your mother was useless as you were being pounded by your stepfather? What's your attitude to a woman who's inconsequential and didn't protect you? How do you treat women in your life? Do you use them and take them of no consequence? And Christine would be a huge threat because all of a sudden it's a smart woman, and he loves smart. How can he discard her or how can he make her less than she is? And there you have this crisis. And falling in love is a giving up control. Don't you want to control if your world is about this abuse and about leaving your brother and letting him be beaten while you take off? And would you gravitate maybe to the law because it's all black and white because you grew up in a family in a home that was gray?
Right.
You didn't know where to turn. They made this amazing background, and I don't know if they didn't. I never went up and told them my backstory in my head. But Alone, for me, was such an interesting thing to play for Michael because I have 8 brothers and sisters just there.
Yeah.
And to think of somebody who has no mother, father, or children that's why he initially started amazingly different from me. And you had to make something different because, what's it like to be alone in the world that way at a young age? It was an interesting, and that's why Michael started very different and lonely, basically. And I think that's what people read into the character, and I think that was because you have to have whatever your character does for any kind of life for the character. They have to want to watch something about him. Something has to keep people's eyes on him. And I think that
you have
might
to
have
know
been
why you act out the way you do. So
and
otherwise,
they have to understand you somehow. Yeah, they have to get it. Exactly.
Right.
And so they brought.
I was going to say, I love the way that Y&R has brought the two characters together and also just brought everything full circle, and it's amazing because, you know, you both are good guys on the show now, and so it's almost like you forget those early days when the evil reigned, you know, and it's just been brilliant writing, brilliant.
Oh, it is. And then they give us the, you know, I love that we fight like we're the crazy family. We fight like a real family.
Well, I was going to say like
watching,
a normal one for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. You know what I mean? I watch some people, you know, sometimes you watch a movie or something like two brothers are arguing. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
That is nothing.
Right.
Those are like two little 12-year-old girls. Who are they? You know, because you know you do. For family, you save up the meanest, wickedest things that you would never do to a stranger.
That's right. Yeah.
And
exactly.
I love that Greg is in there full bore and Gloria and, you know, and now I have Fenmore, who's wonderful that they've made him dark. And it fits, you know, and
really
I get to be an ass at the courtroom. So Michael never leaves the dark side. I've tried to always put it in there. And Lauren is the good woman who saved him, with a past. I love that they made Lauren, his wife, two people who were adults when they fell in love, who both had histories that weren't to be proud of. You know, and then to bring in the son who's bullying. And I was the subject of bullying, and Lauren was a bullier to poor Tracy. You know, so it's fascinating. I mean, I think I have the best character ever of any of the characters. It isn't just me, arguably.
Yeah. Right.
But the synchronicity of the storylines blends so well. I think the family's so interesting. Judith is just a wonder to watch her as Gloria. You know, and you know, and Lauren fitting into the Michael and the Kevin scenario. You know, just in how I meet Lauren and fall in love with her because she bails Kevin out, and I know he won't make it through the night in a jail. You know, and it makes total sense that the brother that you felt so guilty about, she saves him, you're hers. You know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, I told the writers nothing. It was just, like I said, just by happenstance and the wonderful writing and the actors, you got this kind of family that I get. I love being a part of it.
Well, with the current storyline of Fen bullying, I mean, what would you say to kids these days about those horrible real life situations?
Oh, it's so hard because, I mean, kids, we sound like our fathers.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the hardest lessons to learn as a child that you have to instill in them. I would imagine, I'm not a father, but you know, when I taught kindergarten, even at that level, that there are consequences to actions. And it's very hard these days, especially because there's such an era, I think, of instant gratification without thinking of the long-term results of things. I think long-term thinking is not the Americans in particular strong point. So I love the ones, especially. I mean, I know it's a niche kind of thing for the bullying and it'll be okay that the videos that people put out about gay teenagers being bullied, and it'll, you know, eventually things will work out. And I love that people put out these wonderful life-affirming things, and they go for everybody. But it is a weird thing, and there's so many ways to do it now because the internet is anonymous.
Right.
You know, you don't have to go push somebody down face-to-face in a schoolyard, which takes a bit of moxie. You know, you've got to, you know, you're out in public. People know. There's this insidious thing. I mean, it works on all levels. These are otherwise reasonable adults will be talking to other adults. Fans will talk to people, and you're like, wow. You know, would you say that to their face? And it's always been the case, but I think this kind of venue is open to children, very young children. And, I mean, I would, you know, I wouldn't let them near Facebook or Twitter until they're in their 20s. I mean, I don't know what I'd do. It's one of those things where there's so many, you only have so many eyes to watch.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I have 4 children, so I know this very well.
Yeah, if you ladies are mothers, you know way more than me. And in this day and age, I mean, when I was a kid, we could go play miles from the house and come home, you know, trick or treat. We got as much candy as we could possibly lug, and that meant going for blocks and blocks. Nobody worried about us. But it's a different world, and kids are more sophisticated. I will tell you that. Yeah. Writing the novel that I'm writing, the one thing I wanted was not to talk down to them, and then I realized when you're going through it, it's like, wow, you don't have to. You can talk to them as almost little adults. There's just very few things that you have to soften.
And that's sad. That's sad.
It is sad.
Kids don't get to be kids anymore.
Childhood is shorter, but I think it's just. I think parenting, if you can do it, and it's not, unfortunately it's not, and no one should deny themselves being a parent because they can't. It's such a full-time job. I don't know. I think sometimes people stumble into it. everyone has to make their own accommodation. And I can't judge. Like I said, I don't have them, and there's a reason.